Hi guys, this is GSMDome.com and I'm here with a handset that you can repair for yourself at home. It's called the HMD Pulse Pro and we're dealing here with a handset that has an Unisoc processor, so it's definitely an entry-level affair. It bears the HMD logo and shockingly enough it has the glass backside. It also has an HD Plus screen, and the HMD is a bit of a pioneer on account of the fact that it takes some risks, and starting from 2017 it started making Nokia phones, owning the Nokia brand, and now it's offering us handsets under its own brands. So the HMD Pulse Pro has a 50 megapixel AI camera at the backside, glass back, and it's easy to repair courtesy of an iFixit partnership. Let's start the review. So first of all, the design. The handset looks more expensive than it is, at around $200 to $300. So yeah, you may even find it at $150 in some countries. It comes in blue, green or violet, and here we have the version called Glacier Green. It weighs 196 grams, it feels much lighter in the hand and measures 8.6 mm in thickness. It even has splash protection. So we have a polycarbonate frame here and a glass backside, and for this price I'm actually shocked to see that. Yeah, believe it or not, fingerprints are not very visible on this backside, which is always a plus. It's pretty well built and I would say quite grippy on account of the flat frame. I know the bezels are rather thick, especially the bottom one, but once again the build is quite solid. As far as repairability goes, you can replace at home the screen, the charging port, or even the battery using exchange component official ones and official tools. HMD and iFixit are providing you with guides, parts and manuals in order to do the replacement in your safety of your home. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, the panel that we're getting here, well, this one is a 6.65-inch screen with an HD Plus resolution, and it's an IPS LCD panel, just in case you're wondering. Resolution is 1612/720, and we even have a 90 Hz refresh rate. We're promised up to 600 nits of brightness, but we measured it and it's actually 478 lux units. By the way, let's actually view, or better said, watch a video on this screen to see what it can do. So it's your typical LCD with the colors not being very overblown, decent view angles, not as wide as the OLED phones out there. And it even handles sunlight quite decently. I actually took it out for a few tests and I didn't have any problems in the sunlight. So yeah, at 478 lux units we surpassed the likes of the Galaxy A53 or the Vivo X80 Pro, but it even beats the first Xperia 1 flagship. We're doing better than the Moto G54, but I should also probably mention that the recently tested Nubia Focus Pro is below this HMD Pulse Pro, so we are doing fine. With the screen all settled up, it's time to see what we have inside the phone, and we're going to go to the AIDA app for that. Once again, we have an Unisoc processor, Unisoc Tiger T606, the likes of which you'll see on a cheap Samsung tablet usually. The configurations range from 4 to 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. Here we have 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, so yeah, that's the thing. We also have a micro SD card slot, just so you know. I mean, I wouldn't exactly say there's lag per se. It gets a bit sluggish at times, especially after startup and you have multiple apps open, but overall it's not a very slow down experience. As far as the benchmarks are concerned, we have them here, and let me start off with Antutu 10. Here we are just above the Nokia G22 and an older phone from Allview, the Allview Soul X10. We're surpassed by the likes of the Moto G14, Moto G34 and the Oppo A98, which are also cheap phones. So when it comes to the Geekbench 6, here we are with a multi-core subtest above the Nokia G22 and the Moto G23 and the Moto G14. We're doing fine as far as the entry level goes. Believe it or not, we actually also did a special throttling test, and let's see how that panned out. So we go to photos, go to the library, go to the screenshots, and guess what? There is no throttling detected, which is something very rare. We usually see throttling even at 5% on most phones. So yeah, there's that. The phone also didn't overheat, no matter what we threw at it. The temperature stayed, I would say, rather constant and without a problem. So temperature in benchmarks 33.5 degrees Celsius, temperature in games 30.7 degrees Celsius, one of the cooler phones out there. Now on the battery front, we have a 5000 mAh unit lithium polymer, which is supposed to charge at 20 watts. Which is quite okay, and yeah, I think it's time to see what we're getting here as far as the video playback is concerned and all that. So when it comes to video playback, we're at 17 hours and 11 minutes, decent for an entry-level phone. We're beating flagships like the Huawei Mate 50 Pro, but also entry-level phones like the Moto G23. We're also beating the Poco M4 Pro or the Redmi Note 9 Pro. And we're even surpassing the Galaxy A52 5G. We're even beating the Galaxy S23 Fan Edition with its 4500 mAh battery. Next up, we have the continuous usage, where we're at 11 hours and 45 minutes, which is 2 minutes above what the OnePlus Nord deliver, which is quite okay. It beats the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus, and we also are dealing with a phone with HD Plus resolution, which may be the reason why we're getting so good. Now, when it comes to juicing up the phone, it requires 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is quite long, I have to say. Nowadays, we're just above 1 hour or below 1 hour when it comes to powering up the phone. In 1 hour, here you get 69%, which, seeing how generous the battery is, it should be enough for most tasks. Okay, so yeah, aside from that, we also have some options for the battery, even something like production date and how well it's doing. You have it here. There's battery usage, battery saver, there's schedule, battery protection, battery info, production date, activation date, charge, discharge cycles, and health, which are quite useful. On the acoustics front, well, we only have a bottom speaker, and believe it or not, we also have the audio jack. Haven't seen that in a while. So yeah, it's not a stereo setup, and let's actually listen to some tunes to put it to the test. Okay, so decent bass, not very high volume, and not so good treble. Let's see the figures we achieved here, and we should have everything here. So we use a decibel meter to measure the strength of the volume. Tests and volume power. You achieve 86 decibels at the bottom speaker, and it's quite a good value, usually worth something below 85. Yeah, so 86 decibel achieved here, which means it's superior to phones like Nokia 6.1, Galaxy A71, some Zenfone 2s and things like that, but inferior to some Oppo Reno phones. And in games, a pretty modest 85 decibels. We actually wanted more when it comes to the gaming, so here we're at the bottom of the area. We beat the Motorola H40 and Realme C55 though, so yeah, there's that. At least there's no distortion when listening to music. At least there's that. And of course, the bass is quite satisfying. Now let's talk about the cameras. Now, as far as the camera is concerned, we have a pretty basic setup. Okay, so let's get things going. We have here a dual setup at the back. We got a 50 megapixel main camera with AI and an autofocus camera with bokeh. Believe it or not, for the selfie capture, we have a 50 megapixel camera, which kind of shocks us. And when it comes to the camera options, they're pretty straightforward for a Nokia phone. There's slow motion, there's video capture, only full HD, there's a photo with HDR, there's portrait, there's a night mode, and then there's the more section with the flash shot and time-lapse. Let's go straight to the photos. Here's the camera area. We have quite a few of them, and I can already tell you that the flowers look spot on. If you're aiming for close-ups, we have pretty accurate colors and a pretty nice focus. We chose to take photos in the morning because it's very hot outside these days in Romania, Eastern Europe, something like 40 degrees, and things were satisfying, albeit every once in a while you'll notice some overexposure in the frames. Of course, the zoom didn't seem like much because we don't have a telephoto camera here, and there's a lot of white and intense contrasts as usual for these days. Luckily, HDR is there, but sometimes it cannot handle the heat and the very strong sun, and once again, lots of burnt shots and overexposure will appear, especially in the areas with vegetation. Okay, let's see some selfies here. I would say that I expected a bit more from the 50 megapixel camera, but these are in the shade. Let's look for some taken in a sunnier area. This one is moved, this one is okay, but looks a pretty low resolution, and this one is also moved. I actually wanted a bit more from this selfie camera, if I'm being totally honest. So expectations were a bit higher when I heard 50 megapixel. At least we can blur the background afterwards. Let's see now. We usually rely on a special fence which meets all the colors to have the reds, the greens, the yellows, and the blues. I would say they're doing fine for an entry-level phone, but beware of the saturation of the greens in the sun. This is a nice nature shot with an intense contrast. I would say that the core feature here includes the fact that we have some decent close-ups and macros, that's what we can achieve here, and some decent portraits of objects rather than persons. Of course, no zoom whatsoever, so if you got a straightforward scenery to capture, like this one here, we know we may not have ultra-wide, but there's plenty of detail for the main camera and for close-ups, which have a pretty interesting texture. Too bad for the selfies, because I expected slightly more from them. These are daytime shots. Let's see the low light shots. Expectations were pretty low here for a budget phone, but here we are. Okay, so I would say that the street light halos are a bit big. Details are not that impressive, and you should definitely find areas with more light than we did here. Definitely, for sure. There are some elongated lights here and there for the video, as you can see for yourself. Some nasty effects and reflections, and the halos get much bigger than I would have liked them to, but at least the street lights of special stores are actually well rendered. If you're in an area which is better lit up, you'll find some decent results, but overall there aren't many frames which you can post on social media, sadly. And definitely find somewhere lit if you're going to take these shots. Okay, so this has been photo. Let's see the videos. I'm going to start with this one. It's a focus test, alternating between foreground and background. A decent level of focus, I would have to say. Quite fast focus, above expectations. And here we have the stabilization test. Of course, not very good. You can feel each step, left, right, but at least the image doesn't vibrate as much as one would expect it to. Okay, and next up we have here an attempt at a selfie video. It seems like it moves in frames, not very impressive to be honest. The selfie camera definitely is underwhelming, and I do not understand why, because on paper it sounds great. Here you can see the colors. Pretty decent exposure and quite realistic compared to expectations. Of course, sticking to Full HD, as expected, and with some detail loss in the background. We have more samples here, including this one, which makes the selfie video look a little bit better, but still choppy when it comes to the frame rate. Let's see the low light capture now, because we have multiple samples here, and this is not exactly postable on TikTok. The street lights are very elongated and the camera is definitely limited when it comes to low light capture. So yeah, there have been some compromises made to achieve the low price, and this is one of them. Video capture is rather limited in stabilization and low light. When it comes to connectivity, the phone offers you I would say, decent suite. It's got Wi-Fi dual band available, it's got Bluetooth 5.0, it's been a while since I last saw a Bluetooth 5.0 phone, GPS, Galileo, NFC, and a USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom side. It's only a 4G phone, by the way, and it sticks to an audio jack. We also did some tests, speed tests that is, and we have the results here. We go here, results. You can see that on 4G we got up to 69 megapers in download and 37 megapers in upload. When it comes to Wi-Fi, 282 megapers downloads and 341 megapers uploads. We're doing fine as far as entry level goes. Now on the software front, we have here Android 14, which is a bit of a surprise. If it were Android 13, nobody would be surprised, because we are dealing with an entry level phone after all. We are promised 2 years of Android updates plus 3 years of security updates, which is not exactly bad. The interface is pretty stock Android. We have here the news feed. You're using these buttons here, but you can also rely on gestures. You can keep the screen pressed to trigger wallpapers, widgets, and more. We have the drop-down area with notifications and quick settings. Settings themselves are also pretty stock for connected devices, apps, battery, sound and vibration, display, security and privacy, device lock and permissions. We have a fingerprint scanner embedded into this button here, and it works like this. Pretty snappy and pretty responsive. Okay, and the pre-installed apps, where there aren't many of them. I sense there's no bloatware here, which is always good news. We have an interesting app here called My Device, which includes a sort of diagnostics, which is nice to see. Check your device. You can do a checkup. Memory usage, internal storage, external storage, temperature. There's also battery health, signal strength, and data usage, so everything is available here at hand. LinkedIn is pre-installed. We even have FM radio, believe it or not. There's a Fitbit app installed, and of course the Google Suite. Okay, there's also memory cleaner. We have gestures like fast open the camera, navigation modes, one-handed mode, double tap, and more. There's no AI here, in spite of the fact that the camera promises some AI. And other features here include accessibility, digital well-being, and I would say this is pretty much it. I think we've reached the verdict of this self-repairable phone. Well, it doesn't self-repair, you repair it at home. And the pros and cons. On the pro side, it's good looking. It has a glass back. It has a pretty okay software support for the price you pay. Stock Android, and you can repair it at home. Takes some pretty decent close-ups, and the screen is decently bright for the summer. On the cons, the screen is just HD+, and the video capture is underwhelming, as well as the selfie capture. I expected more. The CPU is pretty outdated, but at least it doesn't throttle. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a budget phone for your grandpa or for your teen kid or your pre-teen kid. It fights the Motorola Moto G14, Galaxy A15, or maybe a Galaxy A05 or something like that. The thing that are pros for it are the design and the fact that you can repair it at home, and the screen, I would say, is a pretty unexpected surprise if you can tolerate an HD+ resolution. The video capture is a letdown, so if you're a guy who films a lot or a gal who films a lot, beware of that aspect for TikTok and more. It's not a TikTok phone exactly, it's a phone that will last for a long time and do its basic needs of consuming, not generating social media content. That's it from GSMDome.com. This is the HMD Pulse Pro. I love to see an upgrade in the future for the screen resolution and for the camera filming. That's it from us. Goodbye.